to Be Elite Pod. I'm Shawn Michael.
And I'm Party Johnnetty. And together, we are the PodRockers.
The PodRockers are recording BEP live from our home elite studios to bring you the PodRocker Nation, the very best in AEW wrestling commentary. And this week we are bringing you a BEP house show wrestler spotlight, and we are going to do some cowboy shit in this one. And this house show, we are featuring the Hangman Adam Page.
That's absolutely right, Shawn Michael. We're getting to one of the finalists to see who will be the first ever AEW heavyweight champion. Will it be the Hangman Adam Page, or will it be the Lionheart Chris Jericho? And in today's episode, we're focusing all on Adam Page.
I'm excited. This is a young up-and-comer. He's been in the business a little bit. Like we talked before the show, I'm working my way through Being the Elite, and I'm getting into some of Adam Page's gold in this. So I'm excited to hear some of the stuff that you've discovered long before I've discovered him. So why don't we jump into Adam Page's pre-wrestling bio? So what did Adam Page do before he broke into the wrestling scene?
I tell you what, he has quite an impressive story. He goes to Virginia Tech and he earns a degree in communications with an emphasis on film. But that's not the impressive part of it. What the impressive part of it is he graduated high school already with an associate's degree.
Oh, nice. So taking some of those college classes in high school?
Yes, in high school. Enough, like, that's just mind-blowing to me. He had to have been going, like, through summer classes or something in high school to be able to do that. Getting an associate's degree at the age of 18 or 17 whenever he graduated. And then on top of that, he goes to college and he's only there for 2 years. So he gets his bachelor's degree in communications in 2 years. So he's 19 when he gets this degree. Then he decides, hey, you know what? I know I'm being smart about it. Not too many guys are like this at this age, the tender age of 19, saying, I have to have basically a primary job while I do my passion, which is wrestling. And he's like, wrestling right now is not going to pay the bills for me. I know that. So what does he do? He becomes a high school teacher. It just so happens he gets lucky. He's calling around and whatnot, and he finds out that I believe the teacher before him ends up quitting, and so the school calls him up pretty much days before class is about to begin, and he's like, yes, I'll take it.
So is this the same high school he went to?
Yeah. So,
nice.
Yeah. So a very small town. He goes there and becomes the high school teacher. And all in the meanwhile, through all of this, not only is he taking these, advanced college course classes in high school, getting an associate's degree when he graduates, he's also training to wrestle. And he ultimately ends up receiving advanced training from handsome Jimmy Valiant, who has a great wrestling school in the area. So, like, it's really amazing to see the head and shoulders like on this dude, even at a young age, to be such a go-getter. This is absolutely crazy, absolutely cool. I mean, it's been a while since I've been in high school, but I'll tell you what, man, when it came to the summertime, I wanted to take time off and relax. I was not receiving any sort of college degree or associate's degree while I was in high school. Maybe taking an AP class here or two, but nothing to this extent. This is absolutely crazy to me.
Yeah, I think like even the smartest kids in my high school class maybe came out with 6 to 8 hours of college credit. You know, when you're looking at, 40, 50 hours of credit to get an associate's degree at least. So that's super impressive.
Yeah, right?
And that really is good practice too, because like one of the hardest things I think to get over is a high school teacher, right? Like getting over with your students. But if he went back to the same school at 19 years old, these were kids that he was going to school with that he's now teaching. Like try to try to sell up on front with those kids that like you're just like, hey Adam, like we're not calling you Mr. Page, you're our teacher. We're calling you Adam, you douchebag.
Yeah, right.
That's where you got to work your heel stick and your face stick right there.
Exactly. No, that was the thing too. Like he would talk with some of his interviewers about it, saying basically that he would try to get the wrestling thing out of the way right in the beginning. Like just say, yes, I wrestle. You know, this is school. We're not going to talk about it. You can talk to me after school about it. But during school, let's stick to the program here. And I mean, I can't believe it. Could you imagine just the next day you show up, you're a freshman, and then it's your senior year and you see the dude who is a senior teaching your class? Like that has to be insane, man.
And depending on the area too, because I know my school wasn't like a big like wrestling fan school. So I definitely could see like maybe other teachers, but actually, honestly, probably other teachers, parents, and even students being like, all right, whatever, dude, like you're a wrestling nerd, like, like not going over very well with anybody there, just in terms of like you shouldn't be doing that. You should be focusing on the students instead of focusing on this passion you do in your free time. So I think that's, do you know how long he did all this before he kind of gave up teaching to just focus on the wrestling?
I think he did teaching for like 5 years, if I read that correctly. I believe he was still doing like part-time ROH when he was still teaching, and then he ends up going full-time with ROH and finally quits. But he said, you know, he would like to go back to it later on in life. So it's still in him. I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll go back to it, but we'll see what path he goes down after all is said and done.
Teaching would be a good gig though for that though. I mean, I know they don't get much like off time, like they don't have like vacation time they can use, but you'd have, 8-10 weeks during the summer. You're kind of free to do that stuff. I guess during the weekends and like, Christmas breaks and stuff like that, you might be able to sneak up and do a couple things on the weekends. So seems like a pretty decent gig to be able to try and sneak that in.
Yeah, right. And then, I mean, you also got your summers off too for teaching. So that kind of works out for him. But I don't know, man. Like it was mind blowing reading all that, doing the research on it and seeing like the local paper or one of the papers in Virginia or whatnot, doing an interview with them. It's just really cool. I mean, not a lot of guys are motivated like that.
Well, you don't really, I mean, that used to be the stories you hear about, like minor league, local kid joins minor league baseball team and excels, or, all those kinds of things. You don't really hear that anymore.
Yeah,
the small town kid that makes it. So it's really like, he's kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I guess you're from a little bit bigger town, but I'm from a small town. That's just kind of, that was always our mentality. There's always that kid 3 towns over that made the baseball team, who made it to the majors. And you're kind of getting to see that with Adam, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. I mean, we're the still same. Like, I don't know. In my area, the city that I graduated from had a population like 13,000. So it's not really small, but it's not really large either. And so the area that I'm from, a lot of the cities are connected and they have just an overall nickname for the cities around the area. So when you would hear the same thing, like a kid, 3 cities over going, just recently, actually, one of the kids from around my area is ending up pitching for the Detroit Tigers. So that was big news around here. That's pretty awesome to see. That's the one cool thing. You get pretty excited when you see one of your own make it.
Well, Adam Page, so he's working hard. He's doing, wrestling at night, wrestling on the weekends, wrestling during his off time. So going through his indie history, so what is some of Adam Page's indie wrestling history pre-AEW?
Yeah, so first up, he gets his name, the first part he gets Adam from a childhood friend, and then the last name Page he gets from Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. So that, he gets his name from that. I think it was an episode of Colt Cabana's podcast where they talked about that. So that's where the name comes from. Nothing is nearly as cool. I think it's kind of funny because if you would have asked me, I would have been like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's his real name because it's such a just not a generic name, but it seems plausible. His real name is actually Stevie Woltz. And so, that's, kind of funny. I don't know if I could call him Hangman Stevie Woltz, but maybe I could. So yeah, he gets his name from there, and he starts small. He's doing indie shows in the Carolinas. He's doing stuff with CWF, Carolina Wrestling Federation Mid-Atlantic, and PWX Premier Wrestling Experience. And then all the meanwhile, he's doing kind of these shows, but he ends up getting tryouts for ROH. And I mean, granted, Page had been doing stuff since I believe the age of 16, but since he's such a young guy still, I mean, he's currently 28, so he still has his best years ahead of him. It's really crazy to see him basically only name drop some of these smaller indies, and I'm sure he's wrestled on a million different little local indie shows, but these are the only ones that have a little bit of drawing power to their names. But he gets a couple tryouts with ROH, and he ends up getting the advice that you always hear on the smaller wrestling scene, get bigger, kid. And so he ends up doing that, putting on a little bit more muscle, and he gets signed. At the same time, though, he also had a tryout with NXT, and Steven Regal, or William Regal, whatever way you like to call him, Regal tells him pretty much similar advice. He tells him, go out and be someone and then come back again. So, that's something that actually I've heard. Not only have I read that, but I've also heard in person from some of the wrestlers saying that, like, guys that I was like, why aren't you in NXT right now? Hearing that same exact advice. They said, well, they want me to go out and try to expand on the territories. Yeah, that's the best way I could say it. Go get your name out there and then come back to us. So
come back, we'll change your name and make you somebody else.
Exactly, especially now. I don't think the WWE is going to be really happy nowadays with letting guys keep their names again. It was just going to be a small period. We'll see. So he really, Page, even though he has like these couple matches in 2011, he really gets into ROH in 2013. And he's entered into the ROH Top Prospect Tournament, but he's defeated by Silas Young. And in 2014, he starts feuding with The Decade, and The Decade consisted of BJ Whitmer, Jimmy Jacobs, and Roderick Strong. People might know two of the three of these guys, as Roderick Strong right now is in NXT, WWE, and Jimmy Jacobs was a former writer for WWE. He's the one that took the picture with the Bucks and ended up getting fired, let go.
Best way to get fired. Totally worth it.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so... Jimmy's, I think I've said this on one of our previous episodes. He's a local boy too, Jimmy Jacobs. And, it was cool seeing him, doing everything that he was doing. But, BJ Whitmer, he was also a big name in ROH. And, I think currently he's working behind scenes in ROH right now. But it's been a while since I followed BJ Whitmer. So he actually ends up joining The Decade and learns a lot through BJ Whitmer out of all three guys. He starts out with what they considered like a young boy. And I remember actually going to some of the ROH events and seeing like Adam Page as a part, like being the young boy, bringing the towels to the ring. And, when I say young boy, they take it from New Japan basically. And it's kind of like, hey, you're getting trained, and you have to observe all these matches, and you can only do such a limited set of moves and whatnot. So they kind of did something similar. But I remember too, like the conflict between Adam Page and BJ Whitmore building up with it. You think like something's going to happen, and then, he backs down, and then he ends up ultimately joining The Decade, and he really legitimately learns a lot under BJ Whitmore, and he becomes a full-fledged member in October 2014. But then he ends up leaving The Decade later on. He has a big rivalry with BJ Whitmore that ends in 2016, but the payoff, BJ Whitmore beats him. He's defeated. And then later on in 2016, mid-2016, around May, Adam Page, he's face again, only for the little bit of time. But then he turns heel again by joining the Bullet Club. And this was at a time I remember where he turns and people are like, what? Adam Page, of all people, is joined the Bullet Club. Like, it made a lot of ROH fans and wrestling fans, indie fans, kind of perplexed. They're like, why this guy? Why was this guy recruited to Bullet Club? Like, they understood Adam Cole, because Adam Cole and Adam Page actually pretty much joined either one night after each other. I'm getting my memory confused on this, or it was the same night. I think it was one night after one another.
Well, as I'm going through there too, like they have a very similar look too, a little bit.
Yeah.
Like if you're uninformed and kind of bouncing in and out, like you could mix them up pretty easily.
Oh, for sure. And definitely, like a casual fan would be like, who is the other Adam? What's his name? As like people would know Adam Cole. They're like, yeah, Adam Cole made sense. And, so he joins, and, he ends up at the time hanging Chris Sabin, who is also from around Michigan with the Motor City Machine Guns. Chris Sabin, apparently, I didn't know this, he gives Adam Page the Hangman nickname. So Sabin gives him the nickname, and he ends up getting hanged by Adam Page. So it's kind of funny how that works. In 2017, he wins his first title with ROH. It's the 6-man tag team championship. 3 men on a team, and he gets the belts with the Young Bucks, and they're lovingly called the Hung Bucks. They end up losing the belt to one of the matches, which I will probably later on say, watch this match, and I know we've mentioned it before. They lose to SCU, SoCal Uncensored. And he finishes out his ROH career kind of on a losing streak when it comes to big matches. It's constant, like, hey, look at his pro fight database or whatever. You just see constant, defeated. At the same time, parallel, he joins New Japan in 2016, and he mostly wrestles in tag matches in the beginning. He does enter the U.S. Heavyweight Champion tournament, which happened at the time when they introduced the new belt, but he ultimately loses to Jay Lethal, and I think that was a first-round loss. He teams up with Yujiro Takahashi during all this, but their tag team really doesn't go anywhere. He was tagging before with them, tagging again with them, and they're just kind of like lower middle of the rung in the tag team rankings. Nothing too crazy. He ends up later on challenging Jay White for the U.S. Heavyweight Championship and totally loses. But it's during this time that there's this conflict between Cody and Kenny Omega. This is where we see the build up to figure out who should be the leader of the Bullet Club. And Hangman Page is really the only one to officially align with Cody at the time. So it's kind of funny. You get this like a little bit of a, hey, we're really great friends. And, you'll see that with the Being the Elite stuff, all that happening. And then he also goes on a losing streak with New Japan, ultimately ending at Wrestle Kingdom 13, which leads to another hilarious segment on Being the Elite, where basically everyone from the Bullet Club loses at Wrestle Kingdom 13. And it's ultimately like they get in a fight with Chase Owens and Yujiro, and Chase and Yujiro end up quitting. They're like, all right, we're done with this. We're not in the Elite anymore. This is it. So that's basically how that all ends. And then he ends up he does wrestle obviously with All In and whatnot against Joey Janela. In the meantime, he's having this online feud with Joey Richards, and then Joey Ryan. And then he ends up going with All Elite Wrestling.
So I know you mentioned they became the Hung Bucks, and that's very much something that's alluded to in Being the Elite, that he's got a massive dong.
Yeah.
And, that's the battle between him and Joey Ryan. So is there anything that's been, like, alluded to or talked about more, like in ROH and shows like that, or is it just that it's always Hangman Page has a big dick? Is that just kind of the going thing? Or like, I'm just trying to figure, because I know like with Kenny Omega, they had the DM. Did they have anything like that with Adam Page?
No, there wasn't anything like controversial with that. I'm trying to remember exactly how it got brought up. I think they were just joking around on the nickname, that there was another reason why he was called the Hangman, and it wasn't because of the noose, and so that really just kind of took wind with it, and they really ran with it, and he ends up earning the nickname, getting into the catchphrases and whatnot of it. He earns the nickname of the Hangman Adam Page. So yeah, nothing. I don't know besides like in commentary and whatnot. I also have to mention briefly that he did stuff with Pro Wrestling Guerrilla too, but it was I think only a one show that he wrestled on, and that was kind of it. But.
So as it sounds like, I mean, just from what I'm watching, he seems like he's been kind of more of a supporting character in a lot of the skits and a lot of like even when you're talking about this, he was part of the 6-man tag. He hadn't really won any big singles titles. Has he always just kind of been that? Like up and comer, but not really gotten that big push yet? Like is AEW really his big first push?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And I think there's been a lot to, I know I was talking with you a little bit off air about this, but it made me realize like, man, he's always kind of like gotten these little pushes, but there's never been anything. I mean, ROH, for instance, he won the 6-man tag titles with the Bucks. So, like, that was his only title in ROH. And I thought for sure when that New Japan US Heavyweight Championship tournament was announced, I thought for sure Page was going to win that. I just thought, well, he's really on fire right now. People really seem to love him. And I was really surprised that he lost. I wasn't surprised that he lost to Jay Lethal. I was surprised that they booked him against Jay Lethal. I thought they would definitely want to advance him in the rounds, and that didn't happen at all. So yeah, he's never been like really pushed or anything. Seeing what's happening now, that's his big push.
Well, and I know, so I haven't seen too much like of his promos or anything like that. I know he just had one last week where the Bucks were facing Private Party at this one-off event, and he showed up out of nowhere and had a really good. That's where the cowboy shit came up, where he's talking about the Young Bucks starting up AEW, doing some real cowboy shit, and that got the chant going.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, I mean, that was a really good like promo in the ring. And has he had anything like that you've seen out in ROH or any of the other things he's done?
I mean, yeah, he's done some great promos and whatnot. But not like that. I mean, yes and no, I guess. Has there been something memorable that I was like, oh yeah, you got to see this? I mean, he had some cool stuff with BJ Whitmer and whatnot, but I can't recall something where I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely, you got to see Adam Page for his talking skills. It really, like, his wrestling skills, I think, is what really kind of impressed people. And I mean, he is a good talker. I don't think he's really ever had the opportunity to talk. So now to see him do this, his stuff with AEW when it was first announced and he came in and he was supposed to fight Pac and whatnot. He had a great little speech there too, saying, I'm working for you guys. This is the best job I've ever had, and I hope I can just please and entertain you guys. So yeah, it's really, I think being the Elite, honestly, is what was bringing his character out with the help of the Young Bucks and Cody and Kenny and all them.
Well, that's what's like. I always feel a cowboy gimmick is really hard to get over, especially now. Like, you think like the one I think of most recent, I mean, you had Cowboy Bob Orton, obviously, but that's kind of when cowboys were a thing. The last ones I can think of, and this is kind of, my recollection was, like the Smoking Guns.
Yeah.
And even that kind of got like, all right, I get it. Like, I've just never been a big fan of like cowboy gimmicks.
Yeah.
And with being the Elite, I'm not seeing a cowboy gimmick. I'm just seeing a guy named Hangman Page. So I'm curious how much that's going to play into his AEW stuff, because they talk about him coming down on a horse and all this other kinds of things. But it's really just more, it's the nickname, but he's still just this badass kind of wrestler guy. He's not he's not a cowboy kind of.
Yeah, right. And I think that's kind of more like it. It's more of he's an outlaw than he is a cowboy.
Yeah,
I think partially, and that's why like the Hangman name, the Hangman and all that really started sparking off. Kind of in the same way, just being like, well, he's not really a cowboy. He's just a badass, and yeah, I mean, there's questionable. He comes with a noose down to the ring for a while there. And, I mean, now especially, I don't think he's come out this year anyway with a noose or anything like that. And probably for a good idea not to do that, just with
that's
the political tensions.
I know wrestling can kind of like, it's kind of known for pushing those PC boundaries, but I think nowadays it's not even very safe to even try to push those boundaries. So why even tempt it?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's the thing. If things are a little just uneasy in America, as is, you don't want to push it. Like, you can't, even if he's saying, I got the idea from like the spaghetti westerns or Clint Eastwood, where it's just, you get hanged. And then, it's like, nah, you can't, man. Not right now. Not when the tension's so high. So I think they're really trying to get away from the whole, hey, he takes a noose. He used to wear a noose down to the ring. So
yeah, that's what when they announced him as Hangman Adam Page, I was kind of surprised. Like, even like knowing like, oh, well, he did come down with a noose, which is kind of like, oh, okay, like I get it, but like it's probably not the best thing. I'm surprised he hasn't tried to change his name before he got like fully into AEW, I guess, just to kind of, start fresh with something new. Because, I mean, at this point, it's going to be really tough, I think, to change it, especially with the TV show starting up and everything. So I'm curious if we'll see that tweak at any point or if he'll still kind of stick with that.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it will be very loosely mentioned. I think people will just be like, Adam Page, really. And I mean, I'm sure once in a while the nickname will get thrown around until it eventually just gets dropped altogether.
So something else I love to hear about with these guys is I like to know their wrestling bio. So with this, I'm thinking like, what are their signature moves, chants, or things that they're known for? So with Hangman Adam Page, what are some of those things?
Yeah, so I think some of his finishing moves, like he would do the buckshot lariat, formerly known as the Adam's apple. It was the slingshot flipping lariat, everyone knows. And he's done the turn the page, which was an arm trap reverse STO. He's done the dead eye or the rite of passage, which is a kneeling back to belly pile driver. Some of his signature moves, like corner drop kick. He does a cradle tombstone pile driver, affectionately known as the Cracker Barrel. He's the discus forearm smash, float over powerbomb, German suplex, the moonsaults. We've seen him do the moonsault to the outside. He's done a standing shooting star press. He does the shooting star press to the outside, the running one on the apron, super kicks as well, and just like neck breakers and whatnot, and different variations.
Yeah, his moonsault. I saw. Like I said, I'm getting caught up on Being the Elite, and where he gets kidnapped by the WWE stooge. When he comes out of the crowd and he's got his hands tied, and he does that moonsault with his hands tied.
Yes,
super awesome.
Yes, right.
Lands on his feet and everything. I was like, oh, that is badass. Like that's athleticism at its best.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the dude is just very athletic. Really crazy and fun. I think during this time where you're at, are you in the area of where Matt Jackson is going, where do you think you're
it's
going?
Been going on for a while.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And he does that flip over lariat to, I think, Flip Gordon.
Yeah. That's who they keep doing it to is Flip Gordon.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I just got past the part where Flip Gordon like takes out all the Elite except Matt. And Matt grabs his hand and he's like, where do you think you're going? And Flip's like, I just want to go home.
And he starts crying.
and the next Being the Elite, Matt invites him to the, is it Matt or Nick?
Matt. Well, Matt's the one who does the where you think you're going.
Matt brings him into the Elite, and then they're all like, no, like, Flip Gordon, that's like a supermark name. Yeah. they have to kick him out right when they bring him in. Oh, man, It's gold.
Yep. Yeah.
We were out for a bit. My wife passed out with the kid at like 8. I think I spent like 3 hours just watching Being the Elite. So,
oh, amazing, man.
Well, I don't know a lot, but I know how to read Wikipedia. So let me get through some of the championships and accomplishments of one Hangman Adam Page. So he was the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Most Improved of 2018. He was a Wrestling Force Tag Team Champion. In Ring of Honor, like you had mentioned, he was the 6-man Tag Team Champion. He was the Breakout Star of 2017. Pro Wrestling Illustrated had him ranked as the 63rd out of the top 500 singles wrestlers for the PWI 500 in 2018. I bet he had that on his social media account. Yes. Premier Wrestling Experience, he was the Tag Team Championship twice. Carolina Wrestling Federation, Mid-Atlantic, he was the Heavyweight Champion once and the Tag Team Champions once. He was the Allied Independent Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champion. So a lot of tag titles in here, which is kind of something you see, I think, from up-and-comers. But in All Elite Wrestling, kind of one of the first accolades of anybody, he was the Casino Battle Royale champion for 2019, which gives him the number one contender spot for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, that's right, and it's going to be a good one.
Oh, I'm excited for that, especially like you saw that the battle at Fight for the Fallen between Adam Page and Chris Jericho was pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah.
So as we get through, so you mentioned a few, but if you had must-see matches, 5-star matches for Adam Page, what would be some of those matches?
Oh, man, so I think the one that I'm going to point out to first and foremost is probably that Hangman Page and Joey Janela match, the Chicago Street Fight. Even Meltz gave it a 4.5 star, or 4.25 stars. Page himself hasn't had a 5-star match yet, but he's had a good mix. And I think some of the other ones, obviously the SCU match with the six-man tag championship match. That's a good one at the ROH 16th anniversary show. There's the one between Hangman and Matt and Nick at the ROH Final Battle 2017 show against Dragon Lee, Flip Gordon, and Titan. That's another good one. A lot of his stuff actually is kind of tag matches. Finding stuff that's his one-on-one. Like he had a great match with Kenny, actually, not that far off. I'm trying to remember what it was sometime last year. New Japan's Wrestling Dotaku in 2018. That was in May, where he had a good match with Kenny. He had a really good match with Kota Ibushi at the ROH Supercard of Honor in April of 2018. He had a good match with Okada at New Japan G1 Climax 2018 on day 5.
Seems like that'd be a good matchup between those two.
Yeah. I know it depends on who you talk to. Meltz didn't give this too good of a rating. Like, it wasn't a bad rating, but, he gave him 3.25 stars. But his match against Tanahashi on day 7 of the G1 Climax, a lot of people really liked too. And Tanahashi really, even though he won, really kind of put Hangman Page over. Jay White, G1 Climax, Day 11, that's another decent one as well. Depending on who you talk to with this one as well, Yoshihashi, which a lot of people would be like, what? But Page and him had a good one, a good match at G1 Climax, Day 17. And is probably another really good one that people might not know about, or new fans wouldn't know too much about, but to check out was ROH Final Battle 2018, where he took on Jeff Cobb, and Jeff Cobb beat him for he retained the ROH World Television title. So Page challenged, but he lost. And that shouldn't be too surprising, as Page was leaving ROH at that time.
Nice. Yeah. So how do you, I know like when we talk about some of these other guys, you're like big fans of them. Are you still kind of just getting warmed up to Adam Page, or is this somebody that like you feel super excited about?
Oh yeah, no, I was a kind of a big Adam Page mark in ROH. I really didn't. I remember his stuff with BJ Whitmer, but it wasn't like that wasn't what really made me a Page fan. I started to really become a Page fan when he actually joined Bullet Club, and it wasn't just because like, oh hey, he joined Bullet Club, but what it was I thought, well, there must be something to this guy that they were like, hey, we're gonna put him in Bullet Club. And so then I started to like look and watch his matches a little bit more closely, and started to really become a fan with him and going, yeah, there is something about this guy. Like the fact he's so just athletic. That's the best way to put it. I mean, the guy does like these standing shooting star presses like it's nothing, where other guys couldn't do that to save their lives. So yeah, I was really starting to dig Page once he became a part of the Bullet Club. I like I said, I remember him mostly with the BJ Whitmer stuff. Other than that, outside of that, no, I didn't know too much more about him. And I'm just glad to see, like, I thought, one day that this dude is going to be a star. And now we're kind of seeing that. Whether he wins or loses against Jericho at All Out, I don't know. And I don't know what's in store for him after this, but I can tell you he does put on some good matches. Yeah,
I'm pretty excited. Like I said, I'm just starting to get really, really exposed to him with being the Elite. Like, we saw him a little bit here and there so far with AEW, but I'm really starting to enjoy what I'm seeing on that. And honestly, I know it's a lot to go through because there's a ton of episodes, but they're like 10, some of the longer ones are 15 minutes, but if you're interested in that at all, like, just start getting through that being the Elite. I think when you start getting like episode 30 or 40, it really starts coming into its own, but I cannot tell you how like addictive and awesome it is. It's free content and it's awesome. I hope they keep doing it too.
Yeah, right? Yeah, me too.
Well, do you have anything else you want to throw in for Hangman Adam Page before we jump into a little bit of news?
No, that's about it. I mean, would it be surprised if you start seeing like his discontinued shirts rising in prices now? Kind of kicking myself that I didn't buy. At the time, I was like, oh man, I want to buy these Adam Page Bullet Club shirts. And I just never did. Like I said, the first one had a noose on it. And so it was a little risky even before all the political attention, but like, it was still kind of like, and then the second one, I believe, had the bandana on it, but I just ended up never buying it. So that might be one of my wrestling shirt regrets, but it's fine.
Well, all right, let me jump into a little bit of news. So in the ring news, so AEW has announced an all-out women's battle royale for a big opportunity featuring some exciting names. So I don't know if you heard this recently. They've announced a few names that are going to be participating in the women's battle royale. They're going to do it. It's going to be at All Out. It's going to be very similar to the Casino Royale that we saw at Double or Nothing. Winner of this is going to get an opportunity to fight for the AEW Women's World Championship, which will take place at the very first AEW on TNT. So I'm really excited for this. It's going to be 21 contestants. What are some of the names that you're excited about that are going to be in this?
Oh, man, I think just the announcements that they've made with some of it already. I know the big one that really surprised me was seeing Roddy Piper's daughter, Teal Piper.
Teal Piper. And this is going to be her debut too. So she's just starting to get into it. I don't know if you know anything more about her, like where she's training or anything like that, but nope. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. I was like, oh wow, like that's a good grab by them, and hopefully things work out. I mean, it's obviously wrestling's in her blood. So another one that I thought was really cool that they announced, and the way that they did it was seeing Jazz come back as well. And then Ivelisse, because Ivelisse was in this crazy contract battle with Lucha Underground, where Lucha Underground had such a one-sided contract with a lot of their workers that it was absolutely insane and just ridiculous. And I think it might have been Jeff Cobb or whatnot, was kind of the start to get those contracts broken and out of it. And Ivelisse was just followed up with it. And obviously she finally got out of it to be able to announce that she's in this as well. So I thought that was awesome to see. And it should be a fun little battle royal. That's for sure.
Yeah, Ivelisse, when I saw, I'm just getting exposed to her through this here too, and she just seemed super badass. I'm excited to see her in this. But so I know there's going to be 21 participants. Who's somebody you're expecting to come down that you think is going to be a surprise?
Oh man, I would have to think about that. Gosh, it'd be crazy. I honestly don't know, because on the one side, WWE has a pretty good relationship with a lot of the female talent, the women workers, past and present. There's only a few of them that they definitely don't. And I'm not sure if maybe they would be in it or not. maybe seeing Victoria. That'd be kind of cool to see Victoria, but I believe that she said she retired. And
is Lita still kind of attached to WWE, or she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would be a surprise to see her. That'd be kind of cool to see Lita. I know Trish Stratus, obviously, she's tied to WWE still. Gail Kim would be a fun one to see if Gail Kim made some sort of appearance. I don't know if she's tied up with Impact or not. I know Gail Kim had retired, but then she just came out of retirement not too long ago. And that would be really cool to see. Man, I don't know who else that I could think of off the top of my head that would be like absolutely surprising that they could do that wasn't already, Kong. But other than that, yeah, I would have to think a little bit more on that. Is there anyone you're excited to see or want to see?
Lita would be. I've always was a big fan of Lita because I was kind of that 2000s emo punk kind of fan. So I always had a soft spot for her. I think a funny one to stab it into Vince's heart would be Sable, even though just to see she's a horrible wrestler, but I think if she came out and just I guess they probably wouldn't do any WWE Attitude Era stuff, but to see her come out might be a little bit of a stab. But yeah, I know it seemed like when Brandy was talking about, she kind of made it sound like and then some surprises you don't know about.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious if they've got something up their sleeves.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be really awkward for the situation if Sable comes out and her husband is Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
And, hey, your wife, that would be crazy. That would be absolutely crazy. But yeah, I'm excited to see who's going to be announced.
Well, we also got just recently the Young Bucks revealed their first match for AEW Tag Team Title Tournament on TNT. It'll be week 2 of the AEW on TNT, and they're going to take on for the opening tournament bout Private Party. I think I didn't see much of the match. I saw some highlights, but it's I loved Private Party when we saw them just recently. And they got offered that full-time gig right after their match, and seeing them and the Young Bucks take off against each other is going to be really awesome. I don't know who's going to go over in this match. I'd assume it's probably going to be the Young Bucks, but I'd really love to see Private Party get that push.
Yeah, right. I mean, that would be a great win for them. Who knows? At the one time, I mean, the Bucks might lose before this, but that would be pretty big. That would be the Bucks' first loss in AEW. So if they could do that, that'd be something big for them.
So also we got a little bit of news. So they announced the next 2 cities for AEW on TNT. On Wednesday, October 9th, they're going to be coming to Boston, Massachusetts. And on Wednesday, October 16th, they'll be coming to Philadelphia, PA. So I'm kind of thinking what they're doing is they're probably going to kind of run that East Coast and then start working their way through the Midwest and then make their way to the West Coast. Kind of just... As again, it's probably going to be more economically sensible for them to do that because obviously instead of going from coast to coast, but it's really interesting to see if they're sticking there. I'm curious when they're going to start making their way over. I'm already hoping for when it comes close to my hometown, I can make a trip there pretty quickly. So, but Boston, Massachusetts, city of Philadelphia. What are your thoughts on those 2 places?
Boston is interesting. I mean, good choice. I was just recently in Boston back in April, May. So, I mean, great city. Don't get me wrong there. Still kind of surprising. Like I said, the whole starting off with DC and then I don't know. I mean, Boston's a great sports town. Don't get me wrong. And I think they'll do well in Boston. I really do. Philadelphia does not surprise me at all. Philly is a great wrestling city. And I think that one will sell out before the Boston one does. I'd be interested to see how fast the sell is between the 2 of those. And I mean, I would think that Boston would sell out just because this is still hot, new, and fresh. But we'll see. Now, I mean, the bigger question is, what are the next stops? Are we going to go up more the East Coast? Are we going to travel into, dare I say, New York? Or are we going to make our way around into the Midwest? Are we going to actually see some stops like maybe even like Nashville? Are we going to see Memphis or possibly Detroit? That would be awesome. So, I mean, I don't know. I agree with you. It'd be, to me, it makes sense to just, keep moving economically throughout the U.S. until you hit the West Coast and then, make your way back to whatever. So it will be awesome to see. And hopefully if they do have a Detroit show, I don't know, maybe I could flash my badge here and be like, hey, yeah, the Be Elite Pod, I'm, Party Johnnetty. And they'd be like, oh, no, never mind. You're not Shawn Michaels. So didn't you get the first hints when we didn't invite you to Fyter Fest?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see. I think they're doing it smart too. So they announced, these two. Tickets go on sale this Friday. I'm assuming probably maybe the following week or a week later, they might announce the next 2 or 3 and just kind of keeping that buzz. Because, if all of a sudden they said, oh, here's the next 10 weeks, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's coming. There's 2 places that are close to my area. Well, I'll get my ticket at some point. Whereas these, if you're in the Boston, Philadelphia range, it's like, oh, man, okay, well, they haven't announced Memphis or they haven't announced, anything in Jersey. I'm gonna go to one of these and hurry up and get those tickets. So I'll be excited to see how quickly those 2 sell out.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Well, let me jump into a little kayfabe here. So I don't know if you watched NXT TakeOver in Toronto recently, but apparently there was an inadvertent mention of Dean Ambrose. So I guess on the big screen they were going through different wrestlers and their finishers. And apparently they mentioned Dean Ambrose and his finisher move on here.
Really?
One of the fans caught it and tweeted it and said, you think they meant to put Ambrose on the big screen at NXT TakeOver?
Wow.
So I really like that, somebody, some stooge is probably in a little bit of hot water over that.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly.
We also have a big update on Wednesday Night War between WWE NXT on FX1 or Fox Sports 1 and AEW on TNT. So apparently, and Dave Meltzer's reporting on this, it's nothing official yet, and we've talked about this before, but they are looking at putting NXT on Fox Sports 1, and it's going to be an 8 to 10 p.m. time slot for Wednesday night. So they're trying to go up against AEW here. We had talked about it too. Like you said, it's like if they're taking that off the network and making me go to this Fox Sports 1, which a lot of even the cord cutting cables don't have, right. I'm probably not going to watch it.
Yeah. Oh, me too. That's definitely, I think, a bad move on their end. When I can easily get TNT, but it's a little bit harder to get the Fox Sports 1. It's just, I don't know. I don't think if that was on, if that was on like maybe TBS or something, or even USA, I'd be like, that's going to be not good for AEW. But I'm not nearly as worried with it being on Fox Sports 1. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't think the Fox deal is going to go well eventually. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I want wrestling to succeed on all platforms. And I want us to have just this plethora of wrestling and have these choices. But I don't know. To me, it's just weird to see this whole Fox thing take fruition. And I'll be interested to see what the details are when it comes to the ratings for NXT on Fox Sports 1.
Yeah, because that's kind of, Fox Sports 1, it's starting to get into more channels and everything, but it's definitely kind of like, when you saw hockey go on like the outdoor channel or whatever it was, it's like, what's this channel, the outdoor channel? Like, I don't have this. Like, where the hell do I even go to it? Oh, it's channel 972. You're like, where the fuck is that?
Yeah, right.
And that's kind of what the NXT thing feels like. It's not as bad, but still in that vein. But, like I was actually, again, getting up on Adam Cole and stuff like that. Like, I really like that guy. So I'm like, well, maybe I need to get into NXT a little bit more. But if they're going to put NXT on at the same time as AEW, it's like, hey, sorry, guys. Like, I'm going to watch AEW. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, right. And once again, especially if NXT is not going to be live, that's going to really hurt it. If NXT is going to be live, they'll stand a chance. But if it's not going to be live, it's not going to look good.
And the last story I have, I don't know if you heard of this. I heard rumors about this, I think, on Thursday or Friday, but there were rumors that WWE was trying to buy Fight TV. But an article that just came out a day or two ago says that Fight TV denies reports on sale talks with WWE. So, this was going around. It's like, is WWE, scared about AEW and all these other things? Well, no, they're not. But when you hear rumors that WWE is trying to buy one of the big platforms for these, smaller organizations, it makes you kind of wonder a little bit. It's kind of like going back in the day and buying up all these territories. It's like take away any possibility for anything to kickstart that's not WWE.
Yeah, right. I think that's not that surprising. Anytime that people deny these things, it's almost like, no, I'm sure there was feelers thrown out. There might have been an offer. There might have been something like, hey, are you guys looking to sell even? The fact that there was something there just tells me that, there's some reason why, unless someone, it's very rare that it's just like totally made up, a thing that's just absolutely made up. There has to be some sort of meat behind it. Like there's something to it that it's just like, all right, it might not have been an all out like, hey, we want to buy it from you guys. Let's get the talks going. It could just be like, hey, are you interested in selling? And then that's it. But still, I mean, that's where it's at. And of course, Fight TV is going to deny it. Why would you, especially if you're in talks right now?
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to jeopardize everything.
I don't know if that would probably affect your prices negatively, too. Well, now your stuff's going to go in the tank because people are jumping ship. So now we're going to offer you 2/3 of what it was.
Yep.
But
exactly.
Even to me, I think it's really smart because I know All In was on Fight TV. But they started moving things over to Bleacher Report Live, which is smart because now you've got these two entities that you can work with. So if, AEW is kind of not making sure that they put all their eggs in one basket. So if something does happen, they at least have another option. Like if Bleacher Report Live gets sold to WWE, well, we've worked with Fight TV before, so maybe we can go there instead.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But that's all the news fit to print. Like I said, a lot of WWE, AEW stuff going on right now, which is interesting. I think we'll probably be getting more and more of it as the AEW on TNT gets closer and closer. But I just want to let you guys know, too, we have our From the Stands section, so make sure you send us any feedback you have on any of the wrestlers we spotlighted or any future wrestlers we spotlighted or anything at all. And we also want to push you, the PodRocker Nation, to send in your promos. Record yourself on your phone, email it to us, and we'll put you in our spot here. You just record your voice and send it to podrockers@beelite.com. All right, Party Johnnetty, what do we have coming up next?
So our next episode, we will be bringing you another AEW House Show Wrestler Spotlight, this time on the Lionheart, the Corazon de Leon, Chris Jericho.
I'm super excited about this back-to-back, the main event for All In, All Out. Oh, so excited to hear about that. Like Chris Jericho again, one of my favorite wrestlers from back in the day. So, so excited. It's going to be a long episode, I'm sure, but I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, very long history. I feel like I need to run to the library and check out all of his autobiographies.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that should be fun, man. I'm definitely excited for one of the GOATs of wrestling.
All right, PodRocker Nation. Make sure you reach out to BEP by following us on Twitter @BeElitePod and Instagram @BeElitePodcast. You can email questions, comments, or those lovely, lovely promos to podrockers@BeElitePod.com. You can like us on Facebook by searching for Be Elite Pod.
Well, we are desperately out of time for this week's episode of Be Elite Pod. But until next week, I'm Party Johnnetty.
And I'm Shawn Michaels saying so long from our BEP Home Elite Studios.
And remember, get off the streets and be elite.